What is something a lot of people say but use incorrectly? Someone at work said chomping at the bit, and one of my co-workers asked me if it's chomping or champing. I said I've only ever heard chomping. But I looked it up, and it is indeed champing at the bit. That's the original saying. Champing is what horses do, grinding and gnashing their teeth when they are anxious, which is something they do before a race, which is when they are likely to be wearing a bit. In anticipation of the race starting, they are anxiously grinding their teeth, which is why the phrase is what it is, anxious and excited to get going. That's the exception that proves the rule. People use it to disregard evidence that their claim is wrong. Like the US never lost a war, what about Vietnam? That's the exception that proves the rule. It's a logic and legal claim. A sign says no parking on Sunday. That's the exception. What's the rule? Parking is allowed every other day. The exception proves the rule. That's why a lot of laws qualify lists with including, but not limited to, or else the list would imply they are exceptions to the rule. Blood is thicker than water. The whole phrase is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, and it means the exact opposite of how it's used today. Also, jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Or the Adam and Eve story, people call it the tree of knowledge, when it's actually the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the difference between God wanting to keep us ignorant versus God wanting to keep us innocent. Blood is thicker than water. People use it to mean family first, but it means church over family. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb is the full saying. Jack of all trades, master of none, used to put down someone who isn't an expert at anything, when it is intended as an insult for someone so specialized they can't do anything else. Jack of all trades, master at none, but better than being a master at one. Blood is thicker than water. It literally means the opposite of how most people use it. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning that the bond between those that have struggled together, for example shed blood in battle, is stronger than familial bonds. Half, could, would, should have, makes my want to blow my brains out. Blood is thicker than water. The real saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The exact opposite meaning of what is commonly used for all intensive purposes is all intents and purposes. So many people don't know what per se also know it's not per se means. Through itself, of its own accord, etc. Vocabulary. If you're not 100 confident about what the big fancy word you want to use means, please for the love of God Google it. Or just use the small words you're familiar with to get your point across. You will sound 1,000 times smarter. I guarantee you there will always be someone in the room who will know what the word means, and if you're using it wrong you will sound like a moron. Schrödinger's cat. This thought experiment was to point out that a thing is in fact one thing or the other, even when you don't know or when it is unobserved. Just because you don't know doesn't make it both. That colloquially we use it to mean something is two things at once until observed. We perpetuate the exact opposite of S-point. People who try to sound smart by saying my friend and I, when it is being used in the object position of a preposition and should be my friend and me. I do understand it can be confusing, but it gets under my skin. Same with using myself instead of me when it's used as the object pronoun. Myself is a reflexive pronoun, not an objective pronoun. Blood is thicker than full phrase actually makes it mean the opposite of what folks mean. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Basically, the original full phrase means that relationships formed by choice, friendships and allies, are more meaningful than relationships you had no choice in, family ties. Electrocute means kill with electricity, as in electrically execute. It should not be used to mean electrify or shock. Care if the word electrocute is misused 98 of the time. I'm not going to let myself be the chump that misunderstands when my lucky stars align. Can I finally witness someone using the word correctly? Blood is thicker than water is a bastardization of the original phrase, which was much closer to the bonds of bloodshedding. Battle are thicker than that of uterine water, which means that the relationships we make along the way are more important than familial ties. It means the exact opposite of how it is used today. Anymore. It with positive declaratives I see people constantly on their phones anymore. But it should only be used with negative declaratives I hardly ever see people constantly on their phones anymore. It drives me nuts. I think people actually mean to say nowadays, "You've got another thing coming." The original phrase is "you've got another thing coming," as in you should think that over again because you are mistaken. However, apparently another thing has become so prevalent that it's basically just accepted now, even though it doesn't really make sense. What thing? I know it's considered normal in British English, but I really hate different too. In the US we say different from. Maybe it's just what I grew up hearing. But from implies moving away, which goes along with different. Similar to different from. Doesn't that make more sense? Literally my suitcase literally weighed a ton. No, it didn't. It figuratively weighed a ton. You know, the exact opposite of the word you used. Simplistic. I like the pattern on this duvet. It's very simplistic. No, it's simple. Simplistic is a whole other thing. I haven't heard it as much lately, but a few years ago everyone was using the term bougie to refer to rich people and high-end products. Bougie comes from bourgeois, which was supposed to refer to the middle class, with the emphasis on a lack of worldliness. People on Reddit need to learn the difference between weary tired the middle part sounds like ear, and wary suspicious of something the middle part sounds like care. They are similar looking words that do not sound the same or mean the same thing. Which begs the question. Begging the question is a logical fallacy in which a person assumes the conclusion is true to support the premise of the argument. People often use the phrase when they are actually trying to say something leads to a question. I used ambivalent often and incorrectly for most of my life and notice others do too. I used it to mean that I didn't really care. But I should have used indifferent. Ambivalence isn't not caring. It's having contradictory feelings about something. Gaslighting, OCD, ADD, narcissist, fascist, woke, agnostic atheist, antisocial, triggered, traumatized, toxic. One I used wrong unknowingly for the longest was conscientious. I thought it meant having empathy or taking others' views into account. Slippery slope. Most think it a valid argument. If we ban this, we'll have to ban everything. It's a slippery slope. It's actually a fallacy. No one is asking us to ban everything. We don't have to ban everything. We can just ban this. Myriad. Incorrect usage. A myriad of bees stung me in my stupid face. I got a myriad of bee stings on my stupid face. Correct usage. Myriad bees stung me in my stupid face. I got myriad bee stings on my stupid face. Blood is thicker than water is often used as a sign of how strong family is, when in reality the full saying implies that friendship is stronger than family. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Addicting. Example, oh my god, this chocolate is so addicting. It's addictive. The word you're looking for in this context is addictive. I don't know if it's perhaps an Americanism, but it is so frustrating when I hear it. Standing on the shoulders of giants was an insulting accusation. It doesn't mean following in someone's footsteps or continuing what someone else started, for whatever reason. This is the saying that irks me the most. People using I when it should be me, and vice versa, along with other subjective and objective pronouns. Me and her went to the gym with him, but on the way back it was just she and I. No. Why I've been hearing people say they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. What the hell does that mean? It's supposed to be they're throwing everything at the wall and hoping something will stick. Thinner. Ax instead of ask. Not knowing the correct use of there. To 85 of Americans people born here regardless of ethnicity don't use the language properly. Learn to be happy by yourself is something I heard a lot whenever someone mentioned being lonely. Just because someone wants a friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend doesn't mean they aren't happy in life. Pathetic, pitiful. The words mean you think someone deserves compassion or empathy based on their unfortunate situation. But usually people use them to imply derision or contempt, a lack of empathy. When people say numbers that have a zero at the end, like 60, I've heard many people say 60 and not 60, 70, not 70. and so on. The only acceptable mispronunciation is 50-50, to one bad apple saying when it's in defense of cops. You can't say, well, it's just one bad apple like a good thing when the whole phrase is one bad apple. Ruins the bunch. Is that not just stupid? Ironic ally ... Incorrect. It turns out she was named Karen to isn't now ironic. Correct. The staunchly anti-LGBTQ preacher ironically turned out to be having a homosexual affair. Washington State. We know it's a fucking state. You don't need to add the word at the end. Washington, D.C. has a built-in qualifier at the end, so don't give me that excuse either. Asking what someone's nationality is instead of their ethnicity. Nationality is the nation in which you have citizenship. Ethnicity is the ethnic group or groups you belong to. Quality, as a standalone adjective. First of all, it's a noun. Something can be good quality or poor quality, but something being quality in and of itself is meaningless. I've heard a number say, let's take a selfie, and then hand the camera to someone else so that person would take the picture. That's not a selfie. That's just a photo. Peruse. Everyone I know uses it in the sense of having a quick skim through something, where it means the opposite. To peruse is to read something in depth. All's my piss. I was just being sarcastic. People think this is some kind of a no reverse that cancels out any responsibility they might have for saying bigoted offensive shit. Taxation without representation. My staff love to say the taxes taken out of their bonuses is taxation without representation. My poli-sci minus soul dies inside. Blood is thicker than water, K. The blood of the coven is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning the exact opposite of what people are trying to communicate. The customer is always right should continue to say in matters of taste. People use it to defend some pretty terrible behavior when that was never the intent.